So then, a rundown for the new people. Over the last month, I've been playing 2B2T, a Minecraft Anarchy server with no rules. So naturally I had the idea to go to the exact centre of the map and build a base. Over the next few weeks I made many bases and met many people, one of whom was called Mikimoo. A person, not a base, and she had an idea, very similar to mine, just on a larger scale. Together, we organised a few dozen people to get together at spawn and build some stuff. So, on the day of the event, a few people, including me and Mikimoo, got there a little bit early to check the place out. Now, these three lovely gentlemen you see on screen here are from a 2B2T group called the Watchman. Beast Machine is actually the leader of the Watchman, he's there as well. They ended up dropping me a few things, some apples to heal, and also Beast Machine placed a shulker down in front of me, which confused me a lot because I wasn't really sure if I was allowed to open it, but turns out it was for me and it contained a few kits so that, well, I wouldn't get insta-killed. Something that I've actually previously mentioned in my videos is the spawn water cube, a big cube of water 500 blocks out from 0, in every direction. It was a really cool project, but it had previously interfered with my idea of a spawn base. Except now, instead of interfere, it had the possibility to help it instead.
It's me and my wood. Okay. We can allow me and my wood.
Now, as probably most of you know, explosions don't happen underwater in Minecraft. End crystals just straight up can't be placed and TNT won't do any damage. So that meant that the ways that people would usually grief our bases if they were above water didn't work. If they wanted to get rid of the spawn event, they'd have to mine it. And it would also stop people from PvPing underwater at the event too, because like I said, end crystals can't be placed, so the regular 2B2T combat method just couldn't happen. So of course that made it the perfect place for events, which is actually why there was still the remnants of a Christmas event there from a few days ago. So we had to clear out a big Christmas tree made of obsidian and a few other minor builds to make space for our event that was going to happen. So along with the help of a few of the other people there, we started breaking the tree from the top down. Eventually we actually came across our first PvP encounter of the day. Some guys came along and started stabbing us, and they eventually actually found an air pocket where they could place end crystals and did a little bit of damage with that. But one of them accidentally placed a door in the air pocket, so I got out obsidian and moved in and waited for him to break the door and plugged the air pocket. And then we just basically stabbed them until they ran away. Eventually we finished breaking the Christmas tree, and when we got down bottom, Mikimoo had actually asked me to build a little central build that could act as an air pocket for anyone who didn't plan to drown. So of course I started bringing out my building blocks to build something huge and I built a little shitty wooden shack. It was number 21, and I put a sign on the inside saying for if you need a breather, and I was done with it. So now that I had made the score Dargan 1, 2B0, we went back to prepping for the build, and eventually we came across a little obsidian hut that we'd have to clear out, and it had a little air bubble inside, so someone invited me inside for a friendly chat. And then he blew me up. After such a crushing defeat, I sought refuge in my home to find that it was filled with sweaty men, and then one of them blew it up.
Yeah.
Fuck.
You're 310. What are you at?
So, you guessed it, I rebuilt the base and put the wrong number on the sign and then swim off to the side to have a look at the event. Mainly Photoshop the Bible, but I also looked at the event a little bit with Mikimoo. At this point, it was kind of at its highest. There were the most people there, we had a couple people building, and nothing had gone catastrophically wrong yet. So this guy on screen called Tensive started going around and breaking shit, and after much scientific investigation, I've concluded I have no fucking clue why. He said it was because he didn't like the event, but that was very confusing because Mikimoo had brought him in and he'd been very supportive of it up until this point. The peacetime of the event had finally run out. Tensive was breaking everything he saw, and once again people had found an air pocket where they could place end crystals, and so naturally blew each other the fuck up. So of course, to combat this, I built another house. You may wonder why I haven't actually done anything about the people fighting, and it's partly because if I got involved, I would just die. but also because I figured it would piss people off more if I didn't. Because you see, their whole idea was to disrupt the event by killing people, and if I stopped building, then they would have succeeded. But if I just kept building, then they wouldn't have, and the number on my sign would go up. But eventually I got bored of that and started stabbing Tensive instead, because at this point he's got on my nerves enough. However, the underwater thing had now started to work against me, since the whole point was to make combat harder. Not that I'd rather be doing crystal PvP, because I would die, but yeah. A few people had already started taking swipes at him when he broke their builds, and before long his boots actually broke, and then I started sticking to him because I knew he was low. Now obviously Tensive had realised this too, because he started running and a very, very long chase ensued. Even after speeding up the chase, it was over 2.5 minutes long, so I cut out the second half of it, but as you can see by the chords in the top left, it went on for hundreds of blocks after I cut it. Eventually, however, Tensive jumped into some water down at bedrock and I followed, popped one more of his totems and he logged on me.
Huh?
However, we're best friends now and he's got the evil role in my Discord for being a prick, so we're all good.
Huh? He logged. He logged.
Dargan 2, 2B2T1. So after this, I made my way back towards spawn, but on the way I had to make myself a little underwater bunker to go AFK for a minute. I blocked myself off and turned on anti-AFK. When I got back, I was swimming up in circles because one of the people who had helped to organise the event had found me and broken me out. His name's Gelono3 and he hold on a minute. So if your YouTube recommended is as fucked as to the edge, he told me to jump off and die. So it looks like we actually have a recurring character, but this time he's on our side, so it's all good. And together we made our way back to spawn, and who would have guessed it, made another base. And Gelono even put up a magical sign that prevented griefing, which is very kind of him. What came next was a scene very reminiscent of the Christmas video, where we had a bunch of sweaty men in a rave basement. However, this time it was a bunch of sweaty men in a shed instead. And I'm fairly sure I've seen a video quite similar to this before, but I can't quite put my finger on where. Of course, there were lots of times that the base got blown up, so it wasn't all peace, but I mean, that's the whole point, isn't it? And we rebuilt again and again. All the way up to something like number 24, I believe. It was fairly cramped in there though, so I went outside for some fresh air. I was very disappointed when I started drowning, but it was still quite a nice scene to look back down on. As chaotic as it was, there really wasn't anyone being a prick anymore. And this was more or less the end of the event for me. Although stuff was still going on there long after I left, I had some other shenanigans to get up to. And a few days later came shenanigan time, because somebody wanted me to come and check out their old mega base that had been standing there for over a year, quite close to spawn actually, but it had been abandoned after all the members quit or moved on to other builds, and I got there a little bit before we made it through the queue and had a look around.
steal those.
He also showed me where they used to do an old chunk dupe, which supplied much of the resources for the building of this base, and it was fairly confusing and I didn't really understand it. And that kind of wraps up this video. If you want to be involved in future Spawn projects like the one in this video, I now actually have my own Discord server and my own 2B2T group dedicated to stuff like this. Linked in the description if you want to join. But for today, that's all I have. See ya.